Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Touchdown! No!
On into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
He doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down. Michael for three. Yes! She is gone!
I don't believe what I just saw.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy!
You believe in miracles? Yes!
Number 5 when ready.
What?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to this week's show. You'll notice there's a different driver in the seat tonight. It's like kind of like the good old days where I have to do this myself, and I forgot how much I hated streaming, and I hated doing this as a kind of a one-man deal here. But nevertheless, Pete's not here. He's traveled out west. He's going to check out his Chicago Cubs playing at that wonderful AAA complex of the San Francisco Giants, now new home of the, I guess you call them Sacramento A's for the time being. I don't know. They have just a baseball icon when you look at them at the scores on MLB.com still. So they don't even call them by the A's right now, I guess. But he's out there. He might call in, give us a little live take at some point. Hope he does. But he's with his boy out there trying to enjoy his time. He took the train out west, if you can believe that. But we got a few things to talk about. Opening weekend has closed out. We have a couple unbeaten Goliaths. We have a couple teams that haven't won a game yet. We have retirements. We have torpedo bats. We have all kinds of things on the table this week. But joining me, I don't know what Pete calls him at this point, but he's the permanent co-host. I think we threw the occasional out of there, right, Elliott?
That's true.
Let me get all of us in here. Filling in a third spot for us, like once again, a friend of the show. He writes for Gateway Sports, has his own, I think, a couple podcasts now. But Talking Sports Features has been the long-running one. Don Glenn, writer for them, is joining us, kind of occupying that third spot for us tonight. But I appreciate you joining us, Don, and it's been a while since we have been able to chat. But if you like us here, follow us on X at Team of Rivals Pod. You can follow us by the same handle on Instagram and Facebook. We are now part of the Radcast Network. Excited for that. More details to share as we learn more. Okay. Don, good to see you.
It's good to be here, guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Why don't you remind me, because I'm aware of the Talking Sports on the Bleachers. That was your first, I think, solo job there, right? And I think you do another one now. Is it a Mizzou podcast or is it college?
That's it's the NCAA report with Don and Russ. My co-host is Russ Robinson. We tried Uncle Frank, yep. And we try to, we originally started out just doing Mizzou, Illinois, SEC, Big Ten, and we've kind of expanded now where we kind of try to encompass as much of the NCAA news and stuff as we can.
Well, I can't keep up with any of that. I have to be very selective about what sports I follow. I struggle with time. Elliott, we don't get into much college talk on here. No. I think we're very narrow in our.
No, in the biggest stuff that I get into is like I didn't even watch any of. I still haven't really watched much of March Madness, but I watched the college national championships. So that's kind of like my March is that. So, and nobody watches it unless you wrestled. So,
yeah, that's true. I didn't send us out on Facebook for some reason. It didn't go out on that. So it's one of those things Pete will have to, he'll have to figure out how the hell we correct that later. But anyway, so guys, opening weekend came, it closed out. I know there's a couple games that have happened since. One we're in the middle of right now. Last time I checked the score, the Cardinals were down by a run, which is what they lost by last night. But let's start off here, Elliott, since you are now the one and only Cubs fan occupying a seat on the show this week. So the Cubs already started off 0-2 before opening day for the rest of the league happened. Don't feel about that. The Dodgers at this point, at least up to today, were 6-0. They haven't lost yet.
No, yeah, they're one of two teams that are still undefeated. But they have a little bit more to say than the surprising 0-5 Braves, which I did not see coming at all. There's been some good play. There's been some bad play. Kind of reminded me of, giving me PTSD from 2024 with the bullpen implosion against. Oh God, who are we playing?
You don't want to remember.
I don't want to remember. It was awful. Anyway, a bullpen implosion, being up 8-3 in the 8th inning and losing 10-8 or 12-8 or something like that. Oh God, it was awful. But then, coming back and coming out west or staying out west and playing the A's, and Cubs legend Carson Kelly getting the cycle.
That is okay. So yeah, you got to tell me a little bit about that one. I don't know, Russ. Did you ever? Or not Russ. I'm sorry, Don. Did you ever peg Carson Kelly as one that was going to be a hit for the cycle candidate, even when we had him?
Not really. I mean, I thought he could be a decent hitter. I never thought he'd be the extra base machine that you would need for a cycle run. But I guess anything's possible.
I didn't think he had the wheels for it, but I could be wrong. I'm not the best judge of that. I thought, as terms of our backup catchers, we've had, well, first of all, anybody running the bases, not Yadier Molina, that's a catcher, looks like a track star, right? Compared to
Mm-hmm.
But I always thought Andrew Kisner had maybe some sneaky speed when he ran.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he had some pretty good wheels, but other than that, yeah, the Cardinals have been I don't know. I'm sure that's not uncommon to go around the league and look at catchers and backup catchers and see a lot of them with a lot of speed. It probably doesn't happen that often.
Well, and the funny thing is he said I've had 2 triples before that, and both times guys fell down, and that was the only reason why he got those triples. So this was his third, which he bounced off the wall at a weird angle. It caromed away from the center fielder, about 15 to 20 feet. So he was chugging along, coming around second. And it was it was a cool thing to see. The first cycle for Cubs since 1993, and Mark Grace.
Mark Grace.
Wow.
Got his autograph in person once at a card show. Nice guy. Wish the Cardinals would have signed him that one year.
Was he sober?
He was younger. He was a lot younger.
So probably not.
He was only 1 or 2 years into the league when I met him. But yeah, so I mean, look, Don, it's only 3. I'm going to forget about yesterday. I want to talk about just the opening weekend. It's 3 games, and I don't put a whole ton of stock into it. I like the way they came out and played, but there's not a lot. There's not enough for me there to take away, really. They had over 10 hits in, I think, their first 4 games. They've put up runs. They've blown some chances too, but you expect that with a young team. This is all without really Contreras or Wynn hitting at all.
Right.
So, like, I will judge this team at about the corner turn, which is what I usually do. So about 40 games in, we really start to, I think, better understand what this team's going to be about. And there's there's a few things that are hanging out there in the air. There's Helsley's future. There's Arenado's future. Who knows what this team will do with Mizalok there for one more run? Who knows what they'll do if they're in contention or perceived that they'll be in contention late in the year. So there's a lot of questions still to answer, but I don't know. What did you take away from the weekend other than, hey, look, I like the way they came out?
Pretty much that's about it. Although like I said, I like the aggressiveness on the hitter's part. They weren't sitting back waiting. I did like the way they were moving on the bases, not taking the station to station attitude. I like the starting pitching. It looked fairly solid, although, Gray was shaky in one inning of his outing. Fetty looked really good. I am really impressed with Maton out of the bullpen. At least in again, you're talking small sample size first 3 games, but
Right.
When you strike out 5 of the 6 batters you face, it's not a bad average. if they can keep this kind of momentum going, if they continue to be aggressive at the plate, they continue to play the good defense, which has really been the big thing with both Contreras and Wynn, more so Wynn than Contreras, but his ability to not let his hitting woes affect what he's doing out there at shortstop. He's still making some fantastic plays at shortstop. Contreras has surprised me with his first base defense. All in all, first 3 games went a little bit better than what you had hoped for. And I'm like you. I'm going to wait. We'll see what April's got to do and how they get into the first part of May, and then we'll see where this team is at. If this team continues to play, and a lot of it, I think, and I never thought I'd hear myself say this, a lot of it, I think, has been at least a perceived change. I won't say it's a complete change, a perceived change in how Ollie Marmol is negotiating as a manager. He's not, like I said, with the running, with the aggressiveness in the first in the hitting. I thought he's really, the only knock I've got is last night. I was thinking the same thing as a lot of people. Why not hit Gorman for Win in that spot? You got a little bit of a lineup issue if he doesn't make it and but if they just like tie the game or whatever. But all in all, the first 4 games, I have not really had an issue with the way Marmol is managed. Now, that's not to say I'm not going to have an issue next week or tonight or tomorrow night, but at least for the first 3 or 4 games, he's done a better job than he has in the previous years.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming though, right? It'll happen at some point. And there's a dilemma I want to talk about a little bit later, but I want your opinion on it. But I don't want to go there yet. Remind me, there could be a decision to make at some point in time on Pujols and or Molina, and I want to see what you think about that.
Okay.
So yeah, just going back to the game, I think that I was kind of thinking the same thing. Gorman's off the bench. I think he's had at least 1 hit tonight. He was 3 for 4 in his first start. You look at it, he didn't start the first 2 games, so it just kind of, you'd like to see him out there getting his chances, but I get it right now. You could call it a log jam, if you will. There's outfielders that need to play, and no reason to not play any of them the way they've been hitting. Arenado is trying to, I don't know. I guess you say, hey, look, he's got the right attitude given the circumstance. He's trying to play hard, but he's also, in reality, probably making sure he plays his way on to a playoff contender at some point this year, right? So I think he's going to be putting in 100%. Just fast forwarding to last night's game over the weekend, it was really a defensive lapse by Donovan in that extra innings. He tried to cut the guy down at home, didn't really have a good chance of doing that. Instead of getting the sure out at first base, he would have had runners on second and third with 2 outs rather than second and third with 1 out still. And of course, Mike Trout hit a sac fly, which gave Anaheim, almost called him, gave the Angels a 5-3 lead at that point. The Cardinals came up 1 run short. But those kinds of things will happen. This team is still young, but I like the way they've played up to this point. But I can't take much away from it. My eyes, like everybody else, will be paying attention to how the young guys now that they're getting a chance will be put to the test. Really, it's the second time around the league is really what I'm looking at, Don, is when the league starts to make adjustments on them. How do the young guys finally? Because right now you're not seeing if you have a bad couple of weeks or a bad month, you're getting a ticket to Memphis. It's probably not going to happen this year. They're probably going to stick with you. So be curious to see how all of them adjust as the league adjusts to them, which has always been the problem with rookies. That's always what you look for.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Your point about getting shipped back down to Memphis, like you said, it probably is not going to happen to a few guys this year. There might be a couple guys like Sagasi who still might be making his case to come up. And, if somebody does fall into a slump like a Gorman or somebody like that, they fall into a slump. Siani, you've got enough outfielders. You can dump Siani, bring Sagasi up for a little more offensive punch. But pitching wise, and Liberatore fails. You got McGreevy waiting in the wings down there, so there might be a little of that, but not as much as you've seen in the past.
No, and not. I don't think there'll be a quick hook like there had been either. So, that's I guess if any feeling we got this year, Elliott. In case you were wondering, if there's any feeling we have that's different from prior years, it's that we're not expecting that quick hook like there had been in the past. So,
no, you shouldn't either. I think a lot of what the Cardinals should do is kind of treat your guys like PCA got the treatment last year, where they let him struggle all the way into All-Star break, and then you started to see that turnaround. You started to see those changes being made by him and Amaya, where they tweaked their batting so that they could actually catch up to the speed of Major League Baseball and the pitch, the fastballs, the off-speed pitches. Once they started making those adjustments, then they started to see success, and that's what these guys are going to have to do if they struggle out of the gate. I mean, you don't see a lot of rookies coming out hot. You see them struggle. You see them have some wins here and there. And then you got to hopefully see them make those adjustments so that they can start putting it together a little bit more, then readjust again after those pitchers make adjustments back to them. So
it looks like Newt Barr's in trouble. He's only been 1 for 3 tonight. His batting average is all the way down to 438. So maybe hitting his way out of the lineup, I guess. But no, I'd say a couple notable things. Newt Barr is really off to a hot start, and I have never been completely on that wagon with him, Don. I've never been like, oh my gosh, we got to have Newt. We got to have him. We got to have him off of injury list. We've got to start him. I kind of was never completely there with him, and I'm still, I guess for me personally, the jury's still out. But man, he's made a statement in the first 4 games at least. So he's looked great. He looks like a leadoff hitter. You're like, Jesus, where has this been for the last decade, right? But what are your thoughts on him? Because that's an interesting one for me.
I think putting him in leadoff, I think is probably, at least for right now, until Scott gets his big league legs, if you will.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best decision Marmol has made because he does get on base. He works that count. Originally, when I first saw his name on the spring training roster that one year, I said I wanted him to come up just so that Mike Shannon would have to pronounce his name. I thought that would have been funny, but he's the type of player that is not going to be overly flashy on you. He's not going to hit a ton of bombs. He's not going to break any records for stolen bases. He's just that everyday gutsy guy, goes out there, gives everything he's got, and doesn't expect anything else. And I think, to me, that's a kind of guy I like. I didn't think he would have this kind of success that he's having early, but again, like we're saying, it's only 3 or 4 games, so reading a 400 batting average into that is just fool's folly. But I think he's always shown he could be a good hitter. And you put him in the right situation, right people behind him, he can get the job done. His problem has been injury. And, he'll have to stay away from that.
Yeah, you spoke of Victor Scott, and that's one that I'd like to see him get a long runway too this year. Mm-hmm. And I do like the fact that he's, both him and Wynn are hitting at the end of the lineup, at least for right now. That's probably the best spot for him. Walker's hitting towards the back half of the lineup too. By the way, he's had his first home run of the year tonight. So
yep,
breathing a sigh of relief. He didn't hit another one on the ground. I mean, he was only batting 500.
Yeah.
So, 4 games in. But, one of the, and I'm going to screw this up, I'm just paraphrasing, but the philosophy of the Cardinals hitting coach, and now I'm thinking Dusty Blake, but that's the pitching coach, but
Brent Brown.
There you go. Thank you. I like the statement, and this is an obvious thing, right? I've heard this before when I was a amateur player. There's a time to be a power hitter. There's a time to be a hitter, right? To know the situation, to put the ball in play when you need to. And damn it, man, that's the one thing I've wanted the Cardinals to kind of start doing for years now. And you made an observation earlier that at least through the first 5 games, they are being a little more aggressive than they had in the past. But I think there's a smart way to be aggressive too. They're not swinging total crap, at least not yet. But at least through the first 4.5 games, I'll call it 4.5 so far. Unlike last year where you look up and guys are constantly down 0-2, 1-2 in the counts. That's what I do not want to see. I mean, I expect that there's going to be some level of it with a team this young. But damn, if I didn't get tired of looking up and seeing Goldschmidt and Arenado always down 1-2, 0-2. It got tiring. It got boring. It's like watching dump and chase hockey. Like nobody wants to go there and watch that.
Yeah. Well, I think you've seen that with Nootbaar, with Walker, that, and even Gorman in the game he got to start, there was a difference in when they got to 2 strikes. It was, okay, we're not looking to put the ball a long way. We're just looking to put wood on ball and get it somewhere. And, I think I was listening to the interview with Jim Hayes and Brent Brown, and he talked about Walker. He says, Walker says he feels more comfortable with 2 strikes on him. And which I thought was funny, given that, I don't know how when you were a player, when you played, but I get 2 strikes on me, I'm nervous as hell.
Well, here's the thing though. I can maybe think back and remember, like when you have 2 strikes on you, a lot of choices are taken away, and you have to simplify things. When you get 2 strikes, and I wasn't a huge power hitter. Every once in a while, I'd accidentally run into one, right? Sneeze and hit one over the wall, but that didn't come often. And by the way, I never hit a home run, high school or Legion ball or anything like that I actually knew was going to be a home run. I was always sprinting until somebody stopped me or slowed me down. But I didn't like having 2 strikes on me didn't scare me off because it made me simplify everything. You kind of had to shut your brain off at that point, and you're just focused on the next pitch and the next pitch. So I can maybe understand. I'm only speculating on what's going through his head. I can't tell you.
Right.
But for me, it forced me to simplify things, forced me to shorten my swing if I needed to. So I can maybe relate, but I'm also not 6'7", 250, 260 pounds. I don't like that guy at all. So kind of like if I could approximate, maybe like a Derek Lee. Elliott, if I could compare him to a former Cub, maybe about the same size. He was also
big. Yeah, that's a big dude.
Before I forget, I want to throw this out there because I think I don't know, Elliott, this last week went by so quick, and Derek had to sit in for me, and maybe you guys talked about it with Derek King. The Cardinals it's interesting choice that they may have to make down the road. Not saying it's a for sure thing, but Albert Pujols has expressed his interest in managing. So has Yadier Molina. I think Yadier Molina has even been quoted as saying he's been offered, a potential for that role a few times now by a few clubs. I don't know if they're major league clubs or Puerto Rican clubs, or I don't know from who. But that's an interesting dilemma if they have to face that. You have 2 iconic players. Both are going to be in the Hall of Fame. One was a Cardinal the entire time for his entire career. Both are smart baseball people, really smart. One first question, and Elliott, you can answer this one too. If he had the opportunity for one of the 2, because I don't think one of them is going to go, sure, buddy, you take the head coaching role and I'll take the bench job. They both want the head job, right? That's how I'm reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which one, man?
That's a difficult decision. I mean, you almost have to say sometimes the catchers make the best coaches because those are a lot of the guys that are dictating what's going on all across the field. They're used to calling plays. They know what the pitchers are thinking. And a lot of times you have to, as a head coach, you have to know that, you don't always see that first base leader. I mean, Pujols was, but I never thought of him as, being a statistical guy or, trying to figure, tell the offense what to do or get the infield to shift or anything like that. I mean, he played his position well, and he's a great hitter. Maybe that's where he should start, is as a hitting coach somewhere to kind of figure out everything else, where I kind of feel like Molina is going to know way more about head coaching than probably anybody else.
Yeah. Just like Mike Matheny. Just kidding.
Mike Matheny, David Ross.
Yeah, well,
Bruce Bochy was, and it wasn't that he wasn't successful with the Cubs, because he was. It's just that the Cubs went and got another great coach.
Don, same question to you. You got to pick one of them. They're both interested in the role.
Both interested. Yeah.
Where are you going?
I mean, they both have the Puerto Rican experience now, I guess, and you can't really. I don't know how much you can take out of that for what you want to use as far as a determining factor. But I'm going to kind of echo a little bit of what Elliott said, in that you look at who's made some of the better managers as players, and it does come back to catchers. I mean, you mentioned a few there. I can also think of Joe Girardi. There's a few other guys in there that managed that did well. Position players. I mean, if you think about it, Ted Williams, one of the greatest hitters around, could not manage a ball club. When he was a manager. Joe Torre, though, just the opposite. Although he had some struggles in St. Louis, he made the most of it with New York and LA. I think. Oh, we have an intrusion.
Finish your thought real quick, Don, and then
okay.
We'll go to
I think Molina does have probably. I would say Molina would probably have the edge, given that he does have the, as they say, the field general instinct. But you also have to look at when he was supposed to be the special assistant to the general manager. He was quite conspicuous by his absence.
Yeah.
So you have to wonder about the commitment there. I would almost go Pujols, to tell you the truth.
I'll give you my thought, but we got to break real quick because we have boots on the ground in Sacramento. Yes. He's up on the grassy knoll. I'm not sure if you use that. Oh, it's going to be loud as hell there.
Yeah, it's a little loud here. But,
going to turn it over to you.
Sparing no expense for the true Team of Rivals podcast experience, reporting live from Sutter Health Park here in lovely West Sacramento, right down the right field line, boys. I'm going to just give you some perspective here. We're getting a foul ball tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And also we'll be
nice
planning on shaking hands with Mr. Tucker at least once, maybe twice, but we'll be interfering. But as we walked in, the lad asked, "Dad, why don't the A's just stay here?" To which I had no response whatsoever. It's actually a pretty nice ballpark.
You know what, buddy? They might.
You never know.
Right. Just wanted to drop in and say hi. Obviously, I know it's probably loud as hell for you guys. And I was stupid and didn't bring my AirPods. So,
actually, when you're talking, it's actually not that bad. We can just hear you and not so much of the background.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll just keep talking. I mean, I'm a major league yapper. I can cover up all the background noise. I got you guys covered.
Perfect. Well, we know you got a game to enjoy, and you got to. When are you heading back?
We just got here in Sacramento today. We took the California Zephyr, so we've been on a train for the last 48 plus hours. But then we got plans for tomorrow and Thursday, and then we're flying back late Thursday night.
Excellent.
And he still has no idea.
Yeah, I have no idea what we're doing.
Cool.
There you go. He finally makes his debut on the show.
Yeah.
and it's in the worst possible sound settings.
You'll have to report back. What's the attendance look like there?
I will. I bet it was probably. I imagine it's probably going to be pretty close to last night or yesterday's Cardinals attendance. That's my guess.
It looked pretty scant yesterday. I will say that.
Yeah, I think the official number was 21,000.
At least
so we'll see.
The official numbers now.
Yep. And in case you guys missed in the picture I sent you guys,
oh, there we go.
Hey,
the podcast being repped around Sutter Health Park here. So
excellent.
So now we can write it off.
Sure.
I'll send you the bill, Ron. You're the CEO. Right. You can pay. You can pay for all these expenses.
Put it on the company card. Got it.
I absolutely will. All right, guys. Have a great show.
All right. See ya.
See you, Pete.
See you, man.
All right. Okay, he left. All right. I was wondering if he's going to forget, put it in his pocket, and we'd have to listen to that speaker the whole time. Okay, that's cool. I wasn't sure if you'd actually call in or not, but I'm glad he did. He'll have to share that. I'm sure he'll share the full experience when he gets back. And I'm not sure if you saw a game in Colorado or they stopped by the ballpark.
They stopped by the ballpark.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, Coors Field.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a pretty nice place. I've not been there myself, but I'm sure it's okay. Baseball sucks there, but I'm sure the stadium's really nice. Kind of like Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
100%.
So, my thoughts on Pujols and Molina. So I agree with the sentiment that sometimes catchers, since they're behind the plate, they're seeing the whole game. And some of this I talked to my son about too, Braden, who went to opening day. They can tend to be a little bit more strategic. They're more involved in bullpen decisions. They're calling games. And in Molina's case, if you believe the things that have been said and what you've read about it, he was making pitching changes during the Matheny years. He was the one recommending who to bring in. He was calling the game. And the game probably moves very slow for him, meaning that, you're a young player, you're overwhelmed. Things are just happening so fast. The game kind of controls you instead of you controlling it. And Molina always struck me as the player that he can take control when he needed to. But Pujols was the same way. I'm going to point to one example. There were many. Don, you might remember this. In 2011, they played the Philadelphia Phillies in the division series, right? And they were underdogs. Philadelphia was heavily favored. They were stacked. There was a point in that game, and I think it was in the fifth game, might have been in the fourth game. I might have the situation wrong, but the idea of it's the same. So there was a runner on second. There was one out or no outs. Don't recall exactly, but there was a ground ball hit to the left side of the infield. So the player went for the sure out at first base. Pujols, seeing the runner either rounding the bag or taking off from second, actually met the throw. He didn't stay on first base. He went towards the throw to cut it off quicker and cut the runner down at third, right? And you just don't see that very often.
Right.
From a first baseman. Yeah, you can never see it, right? But that's the kind of thing he would do too. Like the game just comes. He's so quick in his thinking. He has some of those qualities that you see in Molina. I mean, those guys are, some of the best of friends, and they played the game really well. It is a hard choice, but I have to say, the Cardinal for life is probably where I would default to, and the fact that he was a catcher and was so involved in the game planning in terms of pitchers, who to use when. I would have to go there, I think.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, like I said, that's completely fair. I mean, I don't think you're going wrong either way if you have to go that route with pick between the two of them. To be honest with you, but yeah, it is fair to say that Molina would probably be most people's odds-on choice. But we're not the ones going to make the decision eventually, or if it ever gets made. So
no, but it's fun to talk about. It's fun to speculate on. If you have only a short window right now while they're interested to bring one of them in, it's probably a tough situation for Marmol to be in because they all know each other. I'm assuming they're all on good terms. But you only get a crack at those guys once. So, or do you walk away and say, you know what, they were beloved Cardinals as players. Let's not ruin it, bringing them in as a manager and then supporting them with a shitty team. And then they're gone in 5 years. Right. So there's that to think about as well. I don't like to think about that, but that's always a possibility that, the whole romantic relationship that you had ends on a poor note. So, yeah.
Well, and I think either one of those right now with this team, given the way that they would take players aside and mentor them, I think this team would be kind of up their alley in that respect.
Yeah, it would be. I could see a little bit of maybe an influence. I'm not saying anybody's going to influence a front office as Tony La Russa was able to. Right. I could see that from one of the two players. If things aren't working, if a player is available that they really want, I could see them having a more of a say, a bigger voice, especially in terms of how much the fans would be behind the manager at that point. Matheny never had that luxury, really. I liked Matheny when he was a player just fine. I thought the first couple of years is actually a good transition because he had come from the culture. He had come from the Tony La Russa clubhouse. He played there for 4 years. That transition made sense. Most of the team that was still intact and a lot of the players he played with were still there. So that wasn't a huge stretch. I just think after like about 3 or 4 years, it was probably over. Mike Schilt, I don't think had a lot of leverage either. He came from within the system. He's not somebody they brought in from the outside, not a known name. And we'll see how far Marmol goes. The only thing I'll say about Ollie is, he had a great year as a first year manager in 2022, but he also had Albert Pujols and Molina, and Arenado and Goldschmidt. I mean, that's pretty good lineup there, right? That you're running out there every day. 23 and 24 were absolute disasters. So I don't know. I mean, there are probably games and moments I can point to his decision making and go, that was stupid. The way they handled Wilson Contreras in his first year when he came over there, that one probably, if I look back over the last 2 years, that one probably upset me the most, the handling of that situation. I don't know. Again, I don't know how much that was on the manager per se, but we'll see how far he goes. I don't know how much to blame the last 2 years on him, though. Certainly not all of it, because the talent has not, been up to snuff.
Well, especially when you take the consideration the fact of when they brought up when a couple years ago when Wilson or when Walker came north with the team to start the season, had the 12-game hitting streak, and then they send him down because he's not lofting balls enough. They bring him back, and then he struggles. It's one of those, I think, with the new hitting coach, if they'd had him, I think Walker would never have went down. I think he might have objected to that enough to say, hey, let the guy hit. He's getting you singles, and the power is going to come. Let him drive the ball away the way he wants. I think that did a lot to derail his development. I think they did the same thing with Gorman. But again, you don't know how much that was Ollie telling Mo or Mo telling Ollie.
Well, now that you speak of it, right? Guys will drive the ball the way they want. So we have not a new bat in the league, but a bat that social media is on fire about, and that would be the torpedo bats. Now,
you're welcome for the segue, by the way.
Thank you.
Very nice.
If you look at what the Yankees did in the first 3 games, you got 5 of the players using torpedo bats, hitting like 15. What was it? Something crazy like 15 home runs in 3 games, or maybe it was more than that.
It was 15 home runs total. I think 11 of them were guys with the torpedo bats.
But 4 of them were Judge, who doesn't use one. But
right,
that's Aaron.
But that's
Judge. Look, those bats are legal. Major League Baseball did a big thing on it. Those are approved bats. They're not out of spec, meaning that they're not. There's not an element of that bat that's illegal. Let's just say that, right? It's just the thickness of the wood is placed in a different part where the ball is. They feel that the ball is struck most often, right? It's just a little thicker in that area of the torpedo bat, probably because by its shape. There's nothing, guys. I love social media, and I love Bartolo Colon's response to this. I wonder how many home runs I would have hit if I would have used the torpedo bat.
Yeah,
I'm going to say 2 because I think he had 1. So yes, he would have doubled the amount of home runs. But this is a legal bat. Guys, there's nothing to see here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you saw Jeffers, the catcher for Minnesota. He was using a torpedo bat.
Yeah, and Francisco Lindor for the Mets. And there's a lot of players around the league. It's not
there's
just
a lot of players using it. I mean, the Yankees had that big day. I mean, and that's going to happen whether you're using a torpedo bat or a regular bat or the Canadian maple bats. I mean, you're going to have those days.
Now we won't be able to afford those in the major leagues anymore.
Well, that's true. You can't afford those in the major leagues now. But
you can't use those U.S. maple bats. They're just not as high quality. So I guess we have to go back to the ash bat or the torpedo bat.
Right. So,
but I mean, where's the I don't know, Elliott, where's the comment on? Well, maybe the Brewers pitching just sucked in the first series.
Yeah, I mean they've got one of the worst run differentials in baseball right now. I mean, do you hear the Braves complaining about torpedo bats because they're 0-5 right now? I mean. And this is the first year that these bats have been used. Haven't they been around since last year, though?
I don't know for sure. I didn't research it that deep. I watched one report on it coming from a credible source. They could have been around last year. I'm not sure, but
yeah. And I'm pretty sure Dansby Swanson and Nico Horner are both using the bat. They're not, bashing balls over the fence. I mean, Dansby did last night, but
you still have to do the work to center the ball.
Exactly.
Still have to
got to hit a damn baseball.
Have to hit a baseball, which is very hard. I was so good at it, I ended up in the military instead of playing baseball. Yeah, I mean, you got to like you got to do about 99% of the other things right before the bat even matters. So yeah, that's as far as I'm going to take this one. But it's funny watching social media burn.
The other interesting fact about it is the guy that developed that bat is now on the Mariners staff.
Wasn't he like a scientist too? Like a
graduate of MIT.
Engineer. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's a smart dude. Like, hey, you know what? You want to get into analytics, which I know you're a big fan of, Don.
Yeah, thanks.
You want to get into analytics, like all you have to do is look at where the bat struck most often, and maybe we make that part a little bit thicker and take some of the mass out of somewhere else. Like that's probably if you can boil it down, that's as simple as it is.
That's about it. Yeah.
So again, nothing to see here, but something to see, or not. I guess something we won't see anymore, and that's Lance Lynn in a major league uniform. So he hangs it up. I mean, just a big story, right? Like. Where he played for 6 teams, ended up, I guess, finishing in St. Louis for his major league career. I know he tried to catch on somewhere else, but Lance Lynn, interesting character before and after the game, I think, just as much as he was during. Better pitcher when he had a belly on him, I think.
Stop eating those salads.
I don't know if you remember it, Don, the one-off season. I can't remember what year it was, but he showed up at spring training and it looked like a whole different person, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I thought he was better when he had the belly, and I think the belly generated power. Ask Bartolo Colon, just brought his name up earlier. Ask Kyle Schwarber. You know, those guys are different. Something to be said for, hey, he's in the best shape of his life, hoping to have a great year. I don't know. Have you ever known somebody that's been really, really overweight, they go on a super diet, you don't see him for 6 months, you see him again, you're like, Jesus, you look better 6 months ago. That's what I felt like with the players.
Well, I mean, with pitchers, you know, pitchers and hitters, I remember reading Jim Bouton's book many years ago, and he made the same comment that he had talked to I can't remember which pitcher it was, that said, you know, the heavier you are, the better your fastball is going to be because you can put more, generate more power behind it. And he says, so I went on this, I got up to 250 pounds. He said, I played like shit.
And I'm saying most of it in jest. I know a lot of that doesn't matter. There's nothing wrong with somebody wanting to maybe get through the season a little bit easier by being a little bit more fit or dropping some weight. So I'm kidding when I say that, but you know, it's just kind of interesting. Like you say, you see some of these pitchers and hitters that, you know, you're like, why are they even in the league? Who was the Cub? Rick Russell. Yeah, Rick Russell was another. I mean, great pitcher. Yeah, you know, but he didn't look like it when he went out to the mound. Looked like he was, you know. We've got an all-pro softball team that we've went through the whole roster on this show, I think, a few times, and Rick Russell has made the cut. Players like Kent Herbeck, Bob Horner. Hector Villanueva was a former Cub, but he was one of those that would qualify in that one. You had definitely Bartolo Colon. Yeah, we've got a whole roster, Don. You go old school and put Rusty Staub on there if you want. You know, John Kruk would definitely be. Would be there. Yeah, keep going and going. I mean, Vogelbach is the newest Hall of Fame entry. I think just Hall of Fame entry. Yeah, I mean, you know, and what was it? The Brewers had a run there of big boy first baseman for a while, right? Going all the way back to Prince Fielder, and then Vogelbach. There was a couple more that I forgot. I think I can't remember the other guy, but he ended up playing for the Marlins. But he was a big dude too. So I don't know. It's a Brewers thing. Speaking of the Brewers, winless. Yes. So, because you mentioned the Braves, Elliott, and you know we think of the Brewers as the overachieving. Every year we say that this is the year they're going to be in the bottom of the league or near the bottom of the league, and we've been wrong 4 or 5 years in a row now. But
yeah,
4
they always surprise. So
speaking of the Brewers, I wanted to ask you this earlier, but I know we moved on from the coaching things real quick. So you know, Craig Counsell, well known for squeezing out all the talent he could possibly get out of the Brewers, and last year had more to work with and was able to squeeze out less from the Cubs. How long do you think he has? I'm not saying he's not a manager that has a great track record, because he does, right? And he was a player that played on multiple World Series champion team. So I mean, the guy's a good ball player, smart ball player. He got the most out of his, God-given talent too. But how long do you think the Cubs, if they don't make the playoffs this year, maybe next year, like how long do you think he has?
Well, I don't think you can put right now. You can't put all of it on him. You have a front office and a president of baseball operations who is unwilling to make the big splashes when you have the fourth, net worth baseball team in the major leagues that are trying to put together a bargain bin bullpen. And you've seen it implode already once this year. There was a lot of pitchers out there that the Cubs could have gone and gotten, but they didn't want to spend the money because, they're trying to break even, which I think is a bunch of bullshit. You can give me that excuse every freaking year, and I know it's not true because you raise the goddamn ticket prices and the food prices every fucking year.
Well, everything in the world's going up, right? Like baseball is way ahead of everybody. The Cubs are way ahead of all of it.
Right. They've just been always doing it.
They've never been shy about moving on from a manager, right? Like they're, especially heavily favored. Like
not when you have the most expensive manager in baseball. It's pretty tough to move on from that. I think you would see Jed get moved on before you would see Craig Counsell get moved on. Especially since this is only his second year as the manager.
No, I think that's a fair assessment. I think Counsell has no less than 3 years there before any. And that's if you say the Cubs have missed,
Well, yeah, and it depends. Yeah, if they totally implode, yes, yeah. Like if you see them at 75 wins this season, 100%, he may be on the hot seat for the next year. But right now, I mean, I don't even like looking at the Dodgers series in Japan because it should have been exhibition games 100%.
I think we talked.
I know it's I know it's the Dodgers, but I mean, you get rid of those games right now, they're 3-2. So I mean, that looks a little bit better, but they're not. They're 3-4 right now. They played a couple more games than everybody else because of that exhibition series. So,
all right, Don, I got a real world observation, a on-time observation here. The Cardinals game is tied 3-3. Helsley is pitching in the top of the ninth like he did last night, almost like a repeat. Same score, same everything. Do you agree with this decision? Last night I thought it was okay because he didn't get like significant action in the first 3 games. Maybe I understood bringing him in last night, but bringing him in the ninth tonight, I get it. You want to hold it down so that your team can maybe capture it in the bottom half of the ninth. But do you agree with that? I'm kind of against it tonight.
Well, I mean, I look at it that at least this is the way I'm coping with it, is that Marmol's trying to win the game in 9 innings, not play for extra innings. If you're playing for extra innings, then yes, you definitely hold your closer back until you've actually got the lead.
Mm-hmm.
He's banking that the Cardinals can, and it didn't work last night. And it may not work tonight. I think the one problem I would have with it, throwing Helsley in the ninth tonight, is what if you get in that situation tomorrow night? Are you really gonna throw him 3 games in a row?
Throw any anxiety on this, but he's pitching to Trout right now.
I've got the game in the background.
Okay. And Elliott, from the game last night, this is take a guess. So Cardinals leadoff walk in the bottom of the ninth last night. Somebody came up and laid down a sacrifice bunt.
Mm-hmm.
That was excellent. Who do you think that was?
From the Angels?
Nope, from the Cardinals.
Cardinals.
A sacrifice bunt. Good old sacrifice bunt.
Oh, man. Did they make Arenado do it?
Nope, take a guess.
I honestly have no idea.
Contreras.
They made him bunt?
He's batting second in the order, and Newt Barr's leadoff. He led off the inning with a walk. Contreras late. Now, Contreras hasn't been hitting yet. He hasn't been hitting yet. It'll come. He's a veteran. He'll figure it out. But they had him lay down a sacrifice bunt. I don't know. And it wasn't.
I mean, he's pretty fast for a catcher. Maybe they think he can leg it out.
He is. You like to see that every once in a while. Don, I like the sacrifice bunt with a runner on second and nobody out. I don't necessarily like it with nobody out, runner on first. I would have been more of a hit and run situation, or let's see if Newt Barr can swipe.
Yeah. Now, I would say maybe if they would do a hit and run, that'd probably be a better choice for him.
Yeah, I would have been more in favor of the hit and run than the bunt with Contreras.
Yeah, because
although he did a good job, he got the job done.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm like you. You're bunting at first with one out, and now you've got to run, or with no out. Now you got to run her first with one out instead of the possibility of that runner being, if you're going to hit and run, with that runner being in third and one out.
Right.
Yeah, because you get the infield moving, and maybe he squeezes that ball past one of the infielders.
Yeah, and I get it.
If you're worried about him hitting a grounder.
With the runner on second, you do have to have a safe base hit in order for them to get around to score anyway. There's a lot more that has to go right in that situation. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of it, but the ghost runner on second base, I don't know why every team doesn't work on bunting a little bit more specifically for that situation, right? Because that seems like the only time I'd love to see it. Of course, who doesn't miss a good old fashioned suicide squeeze? Cardinals used to pull that off once in a while too, but you don't see those types of things anymore. So we'll see what happens tonight. I'm hoping we'll find out here coming up. We've only got 3 outs to go before end of regulation. Speaking of regulation, I'm going to go ahead and do my at the park STL minute here.
Go right ahead.
We have seen 2 soccer matches the last 2 weeks with no goals scored. So St. Louis City through 6 games, 2-2-2, middle of the pack in the West. Not a terrible place to be, but when you look at the performance on the field, they've went 4 matches without scoring goals at this point. Now, look them down the standings on how many goals they've allowed. They've only allowed 2 goals through 6 games. Only 1 goal in the actual run of play. The other goal was a set piece. So their defense has been excellent. You guys see what the problem might be? It might be they can't score. They can't score.
Yeah, they can't score. Yeah.
Those are frustrating games to watch because I anticipate those all week. It's match day. I have my routine, and when you don't have a reason to jump up out of your seat. It's just disappointing. It's deflating. So City has not. You see that you right there. They could get it done, but in that final third of the field, they just lack the quality so far through 6 games to punch those opportunities home. So I don't know what they've got a new coach toying around with systems and formations, and maybe it just takes them a few games to figure out who's ideal, who is ideal in this situation to go where, what's the best system for the players that you have. There's a lot of things to still figure out. It's kind of on the fly, but I don't know. Look, I'm not one at 6 games in to say, hey, we need a new head coach, but I'll wait till mid-year. And that's when we'll start having conversations like that if they still can't score any goals. But that's
has there been any significant player change as far as the roster goes?
Most of that happened last summer. They turned a lot of things over last summer. They got rid of Bradley Carnell, who they lost to a couple weeks ago. That sucked 1-0. And they turned over a lot of the original. There's all their core 3 players are still there, but one of them's hurt. And they went out and got 3 really good players from the two good players in the Bundesliga. One from he played for AC Horsens, and he was a SLU kid, Simon Betcher. Those 3 played really well in the last 9 or 10 games last year, but it was too little, too late. So City couldn't make the playoffs; they just didn't have enough. But yeah, so far right now, the advancement to the final third, they've been really struggling against any kind of press. Presses have the 3 teams that have pressed them the most. They've really struggled with, I think, at least in my observation. So those connections that go from the back line to the final third, there's some brokenness somewhere in the middle, and then there's lack of quality once you get in the box. They touched the ball 30 times in the box, penalty box, only got 2 shots on frame. So they're struggling. And towards the end of that game, it looked like 2 young kids or like 2 drunk adults playing foosball table, just spinning the hell out of those knobs, just trying to get anything to go in. That's what it looked like in the final third. So that's going to conclude my soccer minute. They play their rival, if you want to call it that, Sporting Kansas City on Saturday. So I'll get my routine back on Saturday night at least.
There
Not
you go.
a Sunday game so far, but boo-hoo for me. At least, can I have all my teams going hot at once? Cardinals have gotten off to a well, I'll take it. They've gotten off to a pretty good start. The Blues are going for what, 10 wins in a row?
10 tonight would be 10 in a row.
That's some fun shit to watch there. When
I've watched the last couple games, and that's been exciting. Is all great.
We're dead 6 weeks ago, Don. We thought like they're out of the wild.
Yeah, there's only about 6 or 8 games left, right? In the season,
something like that. Yeah.
Have they brought themselves into playoff contention?
They're second wild card right now.
Okay.
Yep, they are.
Nice.
Yeah.
So unless they
Good on them.
collapse and fall on their face, it's really theirs to lose at this point. And they haven't been doing it against dog teams either. They've played good hockey against some very good clubs. So that's been a fun thing to watch. I'll probably flip that one.
Yeah, that's fun.
On when we're done here. The Battlehawks won their opening game. I don't care. I know there's NFL fans. I can't get into it, man. I only have so much bandwidth. And then we got a draft in the near future too for the NFL. Don, I don't think I've asked you if you follow anybody in the NFL, but Elliott and I are Bears fans. It's the only thing that we have in common. Pete's a Bears fan. It's the only thing we can rally around on this podcast. Other than that, we hate each other's teams in every way.
I won't hold that against you. I am a Packer fan, but I won't hold that against you.
Right. Well, you've joined the right podcast, so we at least
that's true.
Yeah, at least team of rivals. Hey,
there you go.
Right. We thought about branching out and asking somebody if they wanted to do an NFL podcast, Packer and Bears. My son's a Packers fan. I don't know how the hell I let that happen, but
that's just some bad parenting.
It's bad. Well,
personally, I think he's a right-thinking American, but hey,
baseball wasn't a choice for him, right? He was always going to have to be a Cardinals fan, so I had to let the other ones go. Now, my two boys out here, this generation, Elliott, I don't know who they're going to follow, right? Like it's so different than when we grew up. We were very regional. At least most people
could become Panthers fans. You never know.
Well, Panthers aren't giving them much of a reason to be Panthers fans. Sam claims he was a Chiefs fan.
Wow.
My son Will doesn't care about anything that's not Fortnite or something that's on a video screen, right? He's the one I have to force out to the baseball field. But I think I've pretty much run through everything I wanted to tonight. We're almost up on an hour, so I think it's probably a good time to Elliott. Any thoughts, any Bears thoughts or news that I have missed completely? There hasn't been a whole lot, I think, over the last several weeks.
No, not a ton. We've got the draft coming up. The talk has been whether or not they're going to go and get Ashton Genty, or if they're going to go get I think his last name's Walker. He's a tight end. Could be the pick that they take at number 10. So you got the owners meetings this week. So usually some news comes out of there. Sounds like it's going to be Arlington Heights for the Bears. So I know Kevin Warren keeps saying he wants to get shovels in the ground this year by the end of the year. But it's really starting to look like Arlington Heights is going to be where they, and I think it makes sense. I mean, you've got over 350 acres to build a football village out there. It makes sense. Do it. So
you don't want to go down by McCormick Center anymore to that.
There's no place to, it doesn't matter what they would do down there by the museum and stuff like that. It's still shit traffic. It's still shit parking. It's still going to be shitty for, tailgating. Look at these other places that have been built in the last couple of years. You can have places for your cars, for your grills. You can have entertainment down there. You can have entertainment down there all year long. I mean, you want to make a ton of money for your franchise, do that.
Amen. They need to do something because Soldier Field has never been a place that I'll go there because my team plays there, but I'm not like thrilled.
Right. You don't stick around. You're not like, there's not like a place. It's not like Wrigleyville or even a little bit like Busch Stadium where there's places to go afterwards and hang out for a little bit. Spend more money, downtown to support the area. You can do that in Arlington Heights. You can't do that downtown Chicago.
Yeah. Don, tell us about Lambeau Field. I'll give you 5 seconds. That's all we want to hear.
Never been there.
Okay, good. All right, good.
To.
That's all we want to hear. My son has. He's one of those.
I've been there too.
Yeah, and yeah,
it's a nice area. They got great parking around there. I mean, it's surrounded by all these little homes and stuff that all the owners, Airbnb out during the season. So
wouldn't you? I would.
Oh, hell yes. I mean, you probably pay your mortgage during the 8 games of football season. 100%.
Easily. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. I think we'll call it at that. Don, thank you for stepping in for Pete tonight as he's
thank you.
Not a problem. Anytime you want me, guys, I'm available.
All right, we'll do that. You can find Don. Tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter and run your podcast.
Well, Twitter. You can find me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. TSOTB GCS. You can check out the 2 podcasts: the Talking Sports on the Bleachers and the NCAA Report with Don and Russ.
Elliott, where can everybody find you?
TOR_Elliott.
All right. And you can find Pete at Team of Rivals Pod. He does not participate in social media. I'm not even going to go over my handle either because I'm not a fan of that. But please follow podcast on at Team of Rivals Pod. You can do that name under Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. We're on just about any podcatcher you can find. So please like and subscribe. Again, we're part of the Radcast Network, which we're happy to be a part of. But I think we'll get a check-in and a full report. We'll probably have to allocate probably 20 minutes for Pete to give his experience of heading out west to Sacramento next week, Elliott. So there'll be a good portion in that. We'll try to not wander off mentally as he's detailing their trip and experience. But no, I look forward to have him back next week because I am anxious to hear about it. I'm glad he got to go do that with his boy. But till next week, we love you all so much. Bye-bye, everyone.
See ya.